showing. All right, we'll briefly talk about how the government COVID grants or COVID assistance to businesses are taxed both at the federal level and at the state level. And so this is offered by Community CPA. I mean, this webinar is offered by Community CPA. So our website, communitycpa.com, our phone number, 515-288-3188. Right, as I mentioned earlier, so I'm covering for Ying, who is the regular Tuesday 3 p.m. speaker. Okay, so I myself, I'm a PhD university professor, and I'm working at Community CPA now, and my email address here is steve@communitycpa.com. And you can reach me at the email as well as our general number. So that's 515-288-3188. Okay, we'd like to put this little disclaimer. So for all of the webinars that we are offering to the general public, to clients and the community, and also the general public at large. This is our free service, and participation in this webinar series does not establish client relationship, and the participants by participating in this webinar agree to hold Community CPA harmless when you rely on the information given herein. And of course, that does not mean we'll just arbitrarily throw this information in there. We actually do make our serious study, and then we do the best we can to give everyone the best and most up-to-date information, and in the to our best knowledge and in our best interpretation. All right, so of course, and we do welcome everybody to become our clients, so we can better serve you. And so our phone number is, again, 515-288-3188. And our firm, we do provide accounting, tax, audit, and legal services. So we do have, obviously, we have licensed CPAs, but we also have licensed attorneys. So if you need that type of service. All right, before we jump onto the taxation for government assistance, I want to quickly give an update on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This is the newest federal assistance program to businesses. And although this one is restricted to restaurant businesses only, and so for short we call it RRF, so that stands for Restaurant Revitalization Fund. And so this is the grant authorized by the federal government. So SBA is rolling this one out. And so the SBA's application portal is not yet open, but it's opening very soon. So probably, another week or two. So you can keep on checking at restaurants.sba.gov for an SBA's update on that. So SBA did release a final version of that application form on Saturday. That's just a few days ago. And also to do the application, beside that, you need all your own company's general information, such as tax ID, phone number, email address, things like that. And you also need those documentations or information. Okay, so you will need your 2020 gross receipts and the proof for that. Okay, which the number one proof for that would be a tax return. So you have already filed federal tax returns, so that will be approved. If not, and then you can use a financial statement. So you do have to compile your 2020 financial statement, and if you even have a draft tax return that can be used. All right, and for 2019, the government is assuming you have already filed your tax returns. So I guess you should think of that as being a requirement. So for 2019, you need to know the gross receipt, but also the proof for that is a 2019 federal tax return. Okay, so that you cannot substitute with the financial statement. So unlike the 2020. Also, you will need to know if your company did apply for PPP 1 or PPP first draw and PPP second draw. And you need to know the SBA loan numbers for each of those PPP loans and also the amount for that. And so there's also a simple form that you need to prepare. That's RS form 4506T. So that authorizes SBA to pull your tax return if they need it. Okay. All right. So now let's come back to the topic we want to talk about. So that is the taxation of various government programs. So we'll start with the federal programs first. For those that's been running businesses, you probably have heard all four of those. You may or may not be eligible for all four, but the federal government have rolled out all four programs. The longest and the longest running, obviously, is the Payroll Protection Program or PPP program. So that was running from April through August last year, and then restarted in January this year for in 2021. So and it's still continuing. So the PPP is finishing by May 31st, or when the fund is depleted, if it's depleted before that. Okay. All right, and so then there's this EIDL loan, so that come with a up to $10,000 grant, so that's automatically forgiven. So the grant portion up to $10,000, but there's also a loan portion at the annual interest rate. Okay, and then there's the third one that's already rolled out, so Sheltered Venue Operator Grants, or SVOG. So I reverse the order of those two, the SVOG and the RF here. Okay, so the SVOG is the one that rolled out and continuing right now, and that's limited to only to the venue operators. Okay, so so then there's one more that's rolling out very soon, which I mentioned earlier. So the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, RRF. Okay, so and then this RRF is limited for restaurant businesses only, and that of course include if you have a food truck, so that sort of thing, and that's also considered a restaurant that you would qualify for this RRF. Okay, so all of the those four federal COVID assistance programs, the Congress have passed a law earlier this year, so that have exempted all of those programs from federal income taxes. So there's no taxes on any of those federal assistance. Okay, and also the expenses paid by those funds can be claimed as regular expenses on tax return. So in other words, those that paid by those funds, you can still use those to help you deduct your income from other sources, from your regular business income sources. Okay, so in other words, so just quickly, so the federal assistance programs, they are exempt from federal income taxes. And whether those federal programs are exempted from state income tax, it's a matter to be determined by each state, not by the federal government. Okay, so federal government only has a say. It only has a say on federal income tax, but each state has its say on the state taxation. For example, for PPP. I pulled out this chart from taxfoundation.org. Okay, and the chart says this is the chart as of April 20th, 2021. And although I'm not 100% sure that's accurate. Okay, so anyway, so by this chart, you can see most states, if not, actually, not all states, okay, most states have exempted state income taxes on the PPP programs. Okay, so then each state does have to, make it say about which federal program it will exempt the state tax. So until the state makes that determination or announcement, so of course you should assume those federal programs are still subject to state income taxes. Okay, but good news is, as you can see in this chart, most states, so which include Iowa, for example, that's many of our clients are in. Okay, that include Iowa. So they have exempted state taxation on PPP program. And in fact, for Iowa, I can say that they have exempted the state taxation on the other federal programs as well, such as EIDL Advance, the EIDL Advance, the SVOG, and RRF. And let me just quickly show you. So I think I was rolling on a different screen. Okay. And just quickly recap. Okay. So the restaurant revitalization program, you can go to restaurants.sba.gov to check for an update. Okay. So it's not yet open, but will be open very soon. Okay. And also these are the things that you need to get ready before you submit the application there. Okay. And so earlier I mentioned that for the federal programs, those 4 federal programs, federal tax, they're all federal tax exempted. Whether they're state tax exempted, it's up to the state. Okay, and as this chart shows, most states have exempted state taxes on the PPP program, and for Iowa, for example, I can say that Iowa also exempted taxes on the other 3 federal programs as well. Okay, and this chart, of course, for one, as I said, may not be 100% up to date, even though it says it's up to April 2021. And also, each state, the state legislators, they are under pressure from from the community to try to pass laws to exempt state taxes on the federal program. So there's a good chance all states, probably all states will eventually exempt state taxes on those federal programs. But of course, then that's my conjecture. You should not rely on that. You should check with each state's own tax authority for the final determination. Okay, so this is general information, and also this chart is taken from taxfoundation.org. And they hopefully that organization is updating their chart, so you can come back to visit that chart, visit that site for further updates on state taxation on the federal programs. All right. So beside the federal programs, there are also many states, if not all states, probably all states, have provided one form or another COVID assistance programs. And so, and then of course, how are those state assistance programs to businesses taxed? Right. And so, just like the federal program, so there are 2 taxes we need to look at: the federal tax and state tax. So for the federal programs, as we talked about earlier, so they are all federal tax exempted, but may or may not be state tax exempted, although we hope that all federal programs will eventually be all state tax exempted. But as of right now, to the best of our knowledge, so not all states have exempted state taxes on all federal programs. Okay, for state assistance programs, we also have the 2 types of taxes to look at. Okay, the federal taxes and the state taxes. And each state does not have a say on whether those programs are federally taxed. or federally taxable. It can only determine, each state can only determine whether its own state will tax those assistance programs, but it cannot determine whether those will be taxed federally. Okay, so unless IRS, which is the Federal Tax Authority, explicitly says, okay, this specific state program from that specific from the specific state is exempted from federal taxes. So unless IRS makes that determination or announcement, you should assume the state assistance program is not exempted from federal taxes. So in other words, so those will be counted as income for federal tax calculations. Okay, those state assistance program, generally speaking, they will be counted as income for federal tax purposes. Okay, and then for those state programs, each state, as I mentioned earlier, it determines its own rules, whether these are taxable or not. So hopefully, so each state, or I think probably generally speaking, each state, when they roll out its assistance program, it probably also, those announcements are also accompanied or supplemented by state rules that those state programs are exempted from state income taxes. All right, but of course, that's just generally speaking, you do have to check carefully with your own state and also with respect to each specific state program. Okay, for instance, Iowa State, I listed several here, so there are at least those 4 or 5 state programs, okay, and then some of those states have already made it clear, so they are exempted from state taxes, okay, and some of those that they may not have made such explicit determinations, but hopefully they will eventually, okay. And so you do have to check carefully to make sure those state assistance programs are clearly exempted from state income taxes. Okay, and to the best of my knowledge or our knowledge, none of those Iowa State's program is federally exempted, okay, or is exempted from federal taxes. In other words, those assistance funds, if you received any, you should be prepared to count them as income for calculation of federal income taxes, even if they are exempted from state income taxes. Okay, and Minnesota is less clear. So, and also if I go back to that chart. So sorry, I was rolling on the other screen again, so I forgot to move this one. Okay, so the state, a quick recap. Okay, so state assistance programs. So generally speaking, they are not exempted from federal taxes. Okay, and of course, those state programs, each state also determines whether those state program is exempted from state income taxes, and hopefully they already are, or eventually they will make them all exempted from the state income taxes. All right, so Iowa State rolled out several assistance programs. Some already the state legislature and the governor are already signing into law. Some of these are clearly exempted from a state income tax. Some may not be 100% clear yet, but hopefully they will all be. Okay. And Minnesota is one of those states. If I go back to that chart, okay, it's one of those states that have not exempted PPP from state taxation yet. Okay, so again, I'm not 100% sure that's accurate, but this chart shows that. So, so hopefully Minnesota will also, do something to pass new rules, new laws, new rules to waive the state taxes and on the federal programs as well as on the state programs. Okay. California, if you remember that chart, is also one of the states that have not exempted PPP from a state taxation yet. Okay, but it has exempted this particular state program, for example, from the state tax. Okay, so we hope the California state will also eventually pass laws to exempt all of the federal programs as well as the state programs, the income taxes from state taxation. All right, so that's a quick overview of I guess it's more for conceptually to explain. So for both the federal program and the state assistance programs, and we need to be a little careful about whether each program is whether it's exempted from a federal tax and also whether it's exempted from a state taxes. Okay, so and also for each whether it's a federal or state, so we do need to be careful about the two levels of taxes, the federal taxes and the state taxes. The rules may be different for at the federal level and at the state level, and also the rules may be different from one state to another. So you do have to be careful about your own state laws when you file your tax returns if you received any of the federal or state assistance programs. Okay, so that concludes today's webinar. So I want to quickly show you. And okay, so I mean, most of these are in Chinese, but you can see. So we do have our YouTube channel, and that okay. So you do see we have the YouTube channel at Community CPA. Okay, so that's youtube.com/C/community CPA. That's our YouTube channel. And or you can go to our website at communitycpa.com to check for the webinar announcement as well as the services that we provide. Okay, so you can also contact us at dan@communitycpa.com or any of our other staff at their first name at communitycpa.com or our phone number 515-288-3188. Okay, thank you for your participation and for in the webinar today. Okay, all right, see you next time. Bye-bye.